Hey everybody, and welcome to Grad Student Book Reviews, where we take an academic work and we dissect its thesis and major arguments in 5 minutes or less. All right, today's work is Ideology and U.S. Foreign Policy by Michael Hunt. If you need the full citation, it's down in the comments, so check that out. All right, so let's get to his thesis. So really, Michael Hunt asserts that U.S. foreign policy is based on a traditional ideology that's comprised of three things, okay? A racial hierarchy, a response to outside revolutions, and a belief in the necessity for liberty across the globe, okay? All right, so these three commonly held beliefs have influenced American thought and American foreign policy since the emergence of our country, and he thinks that they still apply today, or at least in 1987 when this book was written, at least my copy. All right, so let's talk about his racial hierarchy. So Hunt contends that America has traditionally had a racial hierarchy that starts, obviously, with Americans, okay, with Caucasians, with whites, but he goes more than that. He says at the top of the food chain, at the top of the racial hierarchy are Americans, and then British, and then next in line are the Europeans, namely Germans, Italian, Spanish, French, in that order, and then the Eastern Europeans, Slavs or Russians. Okay, below that are the Asians, and then Native Americans, and finally blacks at the very bottom of the food chain, as if that was a surprise from American racism. Okay, so he says that racism in this hierarchical form has displayed itself from the earliest stages of American foreign policy, going all the way back to Benjamin Franklin when he advocated for white supremacy, okay, or at least white superiority. It created the view that whites needed to help others due to the inherent superior benevolence and knowledge in the white race. Okay, so that's kind of the core of his argument, and that kind of spreads to foreign policy and why and how we get involved in other nations, and the way that we get involved with these other nations depends on that racial hierarchy. Okay. His second main point, response to revolutions abroad. Okay, he thinks that the American Revolution towed this fine line between mob rule and despotism, right? That most revolutions will fall to one of the others. And as revolutions happened around the world after the American Revolution, the perfect American Revolution that we got right, he looks at these other ones, and if they go one side or the others, then they obviously failed. And out of that was born American elitism, because we got it right and they didn't. So they could need our superior knowledge. Okay. Finally, the necessity for liberty in foreign governments, because of the other two reasons, right? Because of the racial hierarchy and our response to revolutions, we can only deal with governments that were enlightened enough to provide liberty for their people, right? Otherwise, we need to step in and educate them. And this is exactly what happened in the Philippines, right? When we imperially took over the Philippines, we said the Filipinos were not ready to rule themselves, so we would do it for them until they were ready to do it. Okay, that's exactly in line with Hunt's argument here in ideology and U.S. foreign policy. All right, so is it a success or a failure? Well, his argument is successful, but it's one-dimensional. Okay, while it's plausible, in my opinion, it's too simplistic to base the entire ideology of foreign policy on a racial hierarchy or the fear of a spreading revolution that can't toe the line, or the desire for liberty in other governments. Now, I think that's the most plausible of the three, because that goes into some other prominent authors, George Kennan, right, Henry Kissinger, some of these other guys. The other two just are a little bit more fanciful, okay, a little bit one-sided, okay. But otherwise, I think it's a powerful book. It really highlights kind of the inherent racism throughout foreign policy, and it's definitely needed if you're a diplomatic historian or an American historian. So check it out. It's not a very long book. If you agree with me, as always, go ahead and write some comments down. If you disagree with me, throw those same comments down and we can get a discussion going. Subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Keep reading.